All right, this is going to be a reaction video to the Wheel Convert Your Children San Francisco Gay Men's Choir video that kind of got popular about a week ago. A lot of controversy surrounding it, and I wanted to give my perspective. So, first of all, it's not the best choir. You can tell that they're, not professionals. The two lead singers are okay, but everybody else is not that good. So, there's that. I think there's a couple different levels here. So on one, there's the claim being made by some people that they are talking about converting children to be gay. And I think that for the most part, that's not true. Now, there is a substrate of gay thought that does talk about that. There are thinkers, people like Allen Ginsberg and a few others, who do believe in basically molesting young people, young boys, and that through that molestation process, they can become gay. I think this is a very strong minority position. I don't think that there's a ton of people who actively believe this, but there are people who have experienced that. I've talked to guys who basically I'm confident. I mean, I know that they were molested at least by their own descriptions, and that those molestations probably did contribute, in some cases a little bit, in some cases a lot, to them being gay. But I think that that's a pretty strong minority. It happens more than people think because there's such a taboo about discussing it or talking about it, but it is not the norm. Okay, most gay guys did not become gay because they were molested or groomed or anything along those lines. Not to say those things don't happen, they absolutely do, but I still think that's the majority. And I think that the idea, the long-standing claim, and the one that people like Milo Yiannopoulos are now championing, that people are not born gay, that it's a hoax, I think is just preposterous. I mean, I guess you could say you're born with the genes that are, when they epigenetically manifest, are going to make you gay, and maybe you aren't at the second that you're born, but soon thereafter. It's not because of nurture that most people are gay, but it can be a factor with some people. But I want to stress, your average gay guy, most gay guys do not see it this way. They don't think along those terms. That wasn't their experience. Again, it's hard to get true numbers. For every guy who's told me about an experience like that, there's probably several who didn't, and I don't systematically ask everybody I talk to, so I don't have 100% idea about how common it is. It's obviously more common than people know because a lot of it doesn't get reported, but I think it's a minority. The other thing is the song is pretty clear that they're not talking about turning people gay. It's talking about turning them tolerant and wanting them to favor, quote, equality. And there is the rub, because what we have here is conflation of whatever they want, whatever their policy is, and saying, well, that's just our rights. Don't fight against our rights. And you'll see this a lot with politically active gay dudes. Now, let's be honest, most gay dudes are politically apathetic. Just like most people, they aren't involved in politics in any level. They don't care. They're absorbed with their daily lives just like just about everybody else. But because so many gay men are drawn to and go to urban centers or from urban centers, and because so much of the politically active movement has been very, very left-wing and very staunchly left-wing for so long, for those gay men who do start adopting political views, there's definitely a skew towards the left, and indeed the far left, right? So much of it is based in San Francisco and New York City that's definitely a real trend. Again, your average gay dude doesn't care, but among those who do, it's quite common. And gay conservatives are, outspoken ones anyway, are pretty rare, at least ones that are out. So there's this pretty transparent attempt, though, just to conflate, well, we're just against hate, but by hate they mean you can't criticize us on any topic. And so there's this bundling that happens where you think, oh, so if you're politically active in the gay movement, that means you favor gay marriage. And that was indeed the big banner movement for a long time, but it has a whole bundle of things: universal health care, voting rights, basically Democrats in general. It's actually kind of funny the degree to which politically active gays are completely slavish to the Democratic Party, even though the Democratic Party has not been good for gay people for the most part. I mean, the The Libertarian Party put gay marriage in their platform in 1971, in their very first platform, and the Democratic Party didn't put it in their platform until I think 2012. And the most famous, powerful, influential, all-encompassing Democratic politicians in recent years, people like Obama and Clinton, and for that matter, Joe Biden, they spent decades and decades, maybe not decades and decades with Obama because his career wasn't that long, but certainly in the case with Clinton and Biden, and also years and years at least for Obama, they were against gay marriage. They said so repeatedly, and they changed their mind. It exactly correlates when the polls said that that was a majority of people, and then they followed the polls, right? They were downstream from culture. They were not leaders on that. And yet, if you oppose the Democratic Party, then you're, quote, against equal rights. You're opposing our rights. You are against equality. And so there's this huge bundle of all these other issues that are really kind of uncritically lumped in there. And so you won't, for instance, get anything about gun rights, even though there's an organization called the Pink Pistols that is advocates of gays arming up. And there's this idea like, well, if you're really worried about gay people getting bashed or harassed or discriminated, targeted, if you're actually worried about that, then maybe you should be largely in favor of gay people exercising their gun rights and having easier access to guns and gun training. And indeed, there's a very famous case in 1981. It was one of the main inspirations for the Death Wish movies. I forget the name, but it was a gay man in New York City where handguns and all guns were basically banned, but the crime was very high. He took a gun with him. I think this is in 1982 or 83. And he was robbed at Screwdriver Point. 3 teenagers, so-called, tried to rob him, each wielding screwdrivers, and he killed them all. He at least shot all 3 of them. I think at least 2 of them died, maybe more. And he went to court, went to trial. He was acquitted. It was quite a big case in New York City, kind of a watershed case in the self-defense movement, something that led, I think, a few years later to the deregulation of concealed carry laws in many states, although not New York State or California, ironically enough. And so, even though that's an iconic, important self-defense case that really had national implications and valence, and it was a gay man who subsequently became involved in a gay organization dedicated to that point, to that issue, that's not included, right? In fact, if you were for the Second Amendment, if you were for liberalizing gun laws, then they would say that they're going to say overwhelmingly that is hate. That's hateful, and that's against our rights, and you're against equality, right? Saying people should have equal access to the rights of self-defense is against equality from their perspective. So they're bundling all this together. It's really quite infuriating because you have this like we're just for fairness and tolerance, but what that means, it's just like Black Lives Matter. What that actually means, we're anti-racist, but what does that really mean? Oh, it means that we need to have Marxism. It means we have to have communism and abolish the family. Now, what the BLM is talking about isn't exactly the same as what most gay rights people are talking about. And of course, gay rights is a broader thing than BLM. BLM is a specific organization. So you're going to have different gay rights activists who have slight differences here. But basically, they're going to bundle in all of their political beliefs into gay rights and equality and tolerance. Again, ironically, they certainly don't tolerate people who have differing political views or who get in their way. I know when I first became, active in the gay world, one of the first things I did is I posted on a forum of gay guys that, I wanted to know if my political beliefs, namely libertarianism, would be a hindrance. And let's just say in reality, they haven't been much of a hindrance. Like, I don't advertise it. I will talk about it when it comes up. A few times people have told me to get lost and they didn't want to meet again for that reason, but it's been unusual that that's been the case. But when I posed this question on a forum, a well-attended forum, there were a couple people who said, it doesn't really matter what your politics are as long as you're a good person, blah, blah, blah. But the overwhelming majority of people said, well, you have horrible politics and that's evil. These are people who are like, if you don't support public transit, if you don't support universal health care, if you don't support, and what do these things have to do with gay rights? Nothing really. But they see it as if you are against those things or if you disagree with those, they don't tolerate that at all. That's completely intolerable to them. They find that absolutely terrible. And, you know, I've had guys, not even the libertarianism. I've had people say, oh, you work in the oil industry? I don't want to. And these are people who fly back and forth across the country on a jet to and from school, who don't work, who are using energy all the time. But if they know you work in the oil industry, they're like, no, that's just morally wrong. And when you ask them, well, what do you do about it? What do you do to, you know, reduce your carbon footprint? The answer is nothing. They don't do anything, but they want a virtue signal about how superior they are to you, and lump in, you know, petroleum policy and how the BLM allocates mineral resources into you being a homophobic person. That's the other thing. I think that many of them are actively engaged in a culture war, and they really do want to convert your children. Now, not necessarily to be gay. I mean, I'm sure there's a substrat that wants that, but they want to convert them to their politics, and they will use whatever is at their disposal, and this will include, of course, the media and newspapers and movies, but most especially public schools. They really, really want to control public schools. And then they get indignant, and many groups do this. Well, homosexuals are hardly unique in this, but many groups seek to use public schools as a means, as a cudgel, to indoctrinate a broader section of the populace to their beliefs, or to discredit or destroy what they consider competing beliefs, and then have the temerity to become insulted and upset when there is resistance to that. Right? When people who are taxed and forced to attend public schools, right, their money is taken out of their paychecks, out of their property taxes typically, and they're forced to pay for a public school, and then they're compelled to send their children to go or find a much more expensive alternative on their own, if that's even allowed. And there's probably plenty of people in the gay rights movement who would disagree with something like homeschooling or private schooling, right? Those are religious schools for the most part, and even the ones that aren't would not fall under their control, which would be a bad thing. And of course, homeschooling is, you know, just as bad as church as far as most of them are concerned. So they want you to be forced to go and to pay for it, but they then don't want your input in the curriculum or what's actually taught. And they get indignant. Why is this? Why are you bringing this to the battlefield? Well, you're making it a battlefield. You're going to try and use it, you know, however effectively or ineffectively it is. And we can discuss how effective a public school indoctrination program really is. It has some effect, although it's not nearly as effective as people would like, thank God. You know, at the end of the day, it is a government program, so it's not very good at what it's supposed to do for the most part. But yeah, they want to actively come and bludgeon you with their beliefs, and then they want to be coy about it and then play the victim, like, oh, we got all these death threats, but I mean, really death threats? We'll see the evidence if and then. But even if that was true, that wouldn't justify, you know, their mentality here. And I think part of it too, you know, it's Babylonia. They live in San Francisco for the most part, and that kind of attitude in San Francisco is not going to be a problem, and they're going to talk about it and then be amazed by the backlash and realize not everybody is that creepy. And it, even acknowledging that they're not talking, probably not talking about gayifying or homoizing children by molestation, right? I don't think that's what, I mean, it's a big choir, so if none of them have done that, I would be kind of surprised, but I don't think that was like the point of the lyrics or the people who, you know, I don't think that was the initial point. I guess I have seen that some of them are actually on the sex offenders list, but, you know, I'd have to look at the details on that. But I don't think most of them would feel like, but even what they are, even the, well, tolerance, like, it's not tolerance. You don't tolerate people who disagree, and you're asking them in the name of your victim status, which you're, I mean, it's a stretch at this point. Have some gay people been victimized over the years? Absolutely, it has happened. There are cases of this. There are cases of the police singling out, you know, gay bars and mistreating gays, and you know, that's definitely a thing. There were some purges of the federal bureaucracy of gay people in the 50s, the so-called Purple Scare. Although there were pretty utilitarian reasons for that. They were worried, of course, that if you were gay, you were much more liable to blackmail through no fault of the government, but just by the fact that being gay was frowned upon. And if the KGB could produce pictures of you sucking your neighbor's cock, then you might be a liability for in terms of intelligence. So it almost made sense there, and you could almost see, and that actually makes a lot of sense. And yet you could see these people almost subordinating national security to the appearance of toleration, right? You don't want to look like you're picking on gay people, so you let them be a security risk. You can debate whether or not they were a security risk, but I think that it's fair to say that many, many people, especially today, fewer back then, but many people today would say, well, it would be better to allow them to not be fired from their positions. It would be better to risk espionage from the communist dictatorship of the Soviet Union than it would be to discriminate against them because of their sexuality, even though their sexuality is putting them at risk at that time. Now, so that's not my primary. There's other examples. The Stonewall riots were in a large degree because the police were harassing, and the New York City Police Department has always been really corrupt, and gays are hardly unique in how they were targeted, but they certainly were. But I don't know what, in the video, a lot of those guys do look pretty old, so maybe some of them experienced a little bit of this. The other thing, too, is like if somebody in their private life, calls you a faggot or makes fun of you or anything like that, you can have it. Who do you have your chip on your shoulder for? Maybe that person, but like everybody? Oh, the person who called you a faggot is a Republican. Okay. As if Democrats have never, right? This is all, they've taken every slight, every perceived slight, whether real or not, and then just vested that against one side and then completely omitted it from another side, right? So, in my case, because I'm a libertarian, they blamed libertarians as if any of them were ever discriminated against by a libertarian. They're just so rare, and there's nothing in the libertarian philosophy that's anti-gay, and indeed, libertarians put gay marriage in the very first platform in 1971, and yet, no, you're against me politically, so all this angst that I have, every slight imagined or real, and some of them are real, I'm not going to blame it on the people who actually did it, or maybe the institutions that actually did it. I'm going to blame it on you. And the other thing, too, is just conflating everything to rights and equality and tolerance. Rights, equality, it's like the magic word. Because it's gays, they're not going with racism. That's another one that would be really common. Just say, well, it's racism, it's equality. But they're just conflating everything to that rather than making an argument. And it's really, really disingenuous to then act, well, we're just talking about tolerance. This would be like a libertarian who says, I want to abolish the federal government. I want to abolish every social welfare program. I want to abolish child labor laws. I want to abolish anti-discrimination laws. I want to abolish Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, which I do. I want all those things. But then I just couch it as, I just want freedom. I just want freedom. That's it. That's not wrong, but it's also misleading, right? Because that's so vague, right? Everyone's for freedom, right? For the most part, unless you're unless you're a liberal and you want everyone to totalitarianly be indoctrinated into whatever it is that you believe. So the other thing is that kind of whatever the subtext is or the true motivation, behind the song, it's just satirical. It is quite creepy the way that many of them are looking at the camera, not blinking, just, oh, I'm going to convert your children. I'm going to convert you. I'm going to convert your family and make you, quote unquote, more tolerant and more equal. Again, I wonder what the average income of people in that choir is, and we'll talk about equality then. Right? They don't look like the homeless people of San Francisco. But that's not the type of equality that they're probably talking about. So it kind of sucks that they give, I feel like they give gay people a bad name. And why do we have to bundle, why do we have to put all these miscellaneous political beliefs into gay rights, right? What does that have to do with gay rights? And again, it's telling what's excluded from that. Freedom of speech is excluded from that. Gun rights are excluded from that. The Fourth Amendment's excluded from that. The 10th Amendment's obviously excluded from that, right? Where are these guys about gay rights when it comes to foreign policy, right? Why, when we're subsidizing states, kingdoms, terrorist groups in some cases that are killing gay people, where are they on that? They're nowhere. How many of these people complained about Ba'athist Bazi in Afghanistan? How many people complained about our support of Saudi Arabia? How many of these people complain about the fact that Obama, right, the person that we're told if we don't vote for Obama, then we're against gay rights and we're against equality. But Obama was funding al-Nusra in Syria, who were decapitating gay people, right, to establish a caliphate. Where were they? And, to be fair, I think most of them just have no clue what they're talking about. But, they're told they have to support the Democrats, and that's what the Democrats want, and so then that's what they want. But what does that have to do with gay rights? Absolutely nothing. Even the idea, I mean, not to get into a libertarian rant here, but like, what is the difference? What is a gay right versus, right? You have the same, are you not a human? Are you not equal? So there's this weird, we just want to be equal, but then we have special rights. These are called gay rights, and they're somehow distinct from regular rights. If they weren't, well, you just say we want our rights, so I don't know exactly what they believe, but the fact that they're distinguishing gay rights from just rights indicates that they think that there is a distinction. Well, okay, that's not equal then. There's a distinction. You've got gay rights, and then you've got other kinds of rights. And gay rights, I think, include a lot of positive rights, right? So the right to have free healthcare, right? To subsidize your living standards, right? So these people would think, well, everyone who's gay should get PrEP, for instance, right? Now to the extent that they favor universal healthcare, I guess this would be true, but they think that a straight person who is extremely promiscuous or about as promiscuous as a gay man should just have all their medical bills paid for, all their abortions paid for if they're a woman, all their birth control. And, I guess to give them their due, I bet a lot of them do actually think that. But the other thing is, too, is they think that they shouldn't be fired. They, favor anti-discrimination laws. When I was in college, this was the big thing. The municipalities were passing anti-discrimination laws, which, as Thomas Sowell has shown, is actually counterproductive, right? If you have two people that you want to hire and one of them is a protected class that you can not fire, then it makes sense to find a way to not hire them. Even if they're just as qualified as the other person, you don't want to be saddled with somebody that is going to raise a ruckus. And this does happen. I was just talking to a guy at the gym today, a gay guy, no less, who said that one of his jobs is to liaison with HR, and one of the employees was complaining that he was being treated differently by his coworkers because he's gay. He has a rainbow tattoo on his leg. He's been wearing shorts which show it. And, what was the problem? How was he being treated differently? Well, because when he did some kind of task, there was applause. Like he did a report or something, and the rest of the office applauded. And he decided they're discriminating against me because I'm gay, and I don't want it to be known that I'm gay, but I'm going to walk around with shorts on with a rainbow flag tattoo. Who wants to deal with that? How is that, if someone else walks around and they have a cross, right, they're Christian, or they're libertarian, right, they have a Gadsden flag or whatever else, are they protected classes? And the answer is no. And they don't want them to be protected classes. They want a protected class just for me, and maybe they have other groups that they feel like they need as allies, so they want protection for them as well. But not everybody. And that's not equal rights. That's not tolerance. That's special privilege. You're looking for privilege, a monopoly, old school mercantilism. You want to be in a separate class that's special and above everybody else. And, there is a certain conceit some gay guys do have. They do think that they're better than everybody else. Maybe it's because their IQs are a little bit higher on average. But there's certainly a certain elitism that you're not going to find in your average gay guy, but you are not unlikely to find in these politically active bubble people. And I don't know how many of these people are from, a lot of people move to New York and move to San Francisco, so I don't know how many of them are natives and how many of them kind of move there. You get a lot of these people really fetishize these cities and then spend the rest of their lives shitting on wherever else they may have been from. and celebrating their urbanity and their sophistication. But they're they're really quite intolerant and against alternative views, alternative ideas, alternative political stances, and they really don't have much of an argument other than say you're being homophobic and you're being intolerant and you're being unequal and you're being prejudiced, and that's all I'm trying to do, right? I'm just trying to make everything fair. Yay, fair. Like, we're just trying to spread peace, right? That's what I'm reading a book on Napoleon right now. What do the French Revolutionary armies say whenever they invaded a country? We're just trying to spread peace. That's all we're trying to do. But what are we doing? We do that today. You know, when we invade all these other countries. Like, no, we're not aggressive. We're just trying to bring peace. We're just trying to bring peace to the world by invading as many countries as possible, right? And that's rather mendacious to the victims, and it's rather mendacious to the people out there who don't want their kids to be quote unquote converted to be tolerant of these guys. And the other thing too, it seems like kicking a horse when it's down. Like, gays have to a large extent won the culture war. You know, I remember when Prop 6 was passed in California, and was that 2006 or 2009? You know, like, where they banned gay marriage in California of all places, and then it just broke, man. Gay marriage was something that people debated, and, you know, I still, look, hardcore libertarian here. I don't think the state should be involved in licensure at all. Licensing marriages, the history there is quite gross and surprisingly racist for those who don't know. It's a contract between two individuals, and they can have a negotiation with whatever religious institution or employer that they want about who's going to recognize it and who's not. But this became a casus belli for the gay movement, and something that they've been rallied about. But then they got it, and now what are they going to do? Well, we're going to come for your children and convert them to everything else. So not necessarily that they're going to rape them and turn them gay. I'm sure there's a few of them who think that. That probably wasn't the general idea. But this is not, I mean, it's not as bad. Converting someone to gay politics is probably not as bad as raping them to be gay, but like, it's not good, and people are not going to react well to it. And then to play victim again, I mean, this is, what's their stance? I'm a victim because when I declared openly that I wanted to indoctrinate your children, and you for that matter, and you resented that forcefully and at worst threatening violence about that, now I'm the victim. You know, I'm coming to tell you. What would be the reaction of these guys if, you know, Pat Robertson or somebody on the right said, we're gonna take over the schools and we're gonna force conversion therapy on everybody. We're gonna teach that homosexuality is wrong, and we're gonna teach you all about how bad it is and how it spreads AIDS and blah blah blah. Right? How would you feel about that? You think that would be fine? You'd be happy? You'd be like, oh, they're just trying to educate us and show us about the dangers of STDs. Aren't they great? Well, we should be thankful. No, you would be absolutely apoplectic, and that's exactly how everyone else is reacting. So, you know, and I think also it's a sad testament. Like, as long as we have public schools, people are going to fight about this. Right? There's just no way around it. Everyone's forced to pay and everyone's forced to go unless you can afford an alternative, which is themselves always regulated to a greater or lesser degree. And the thing is, people don't agree. They don't agree on all kinds of things, right? They don't agree on pedagogy. They don't agree on the curriculum. They don't agree how it should be set up. They don't agree on how long it should go, what should be taught, how it should be taught, how the grade should be done. Should there be tracking? Should there not be tracking? Should there be testing? Should there not be testing? Blah, 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 blah. And yet the same people who completely disagree for good or bad reasons are forced into the same exact system. And of course they're going to fight about it. And then it becomes, you know, people talk about the gun in the room, the indoctrination institution in the room, right? You have the indoctrination institution. It's the same thing with a regulatory agency. You can't have a government that has the power to regulate and to tax and then be surprised or indignant when corporations or companies or private individuals lobby the government to wield that a particular way. Of course they're going to do that. They have to do it, right? There's a prisoner's dilemma if they don't. And there's a prisoner's dilemma if you don't go and try and influence the schools to, at the very least, not do what you're against if you can't manage to get it to do what you want. And I think that I think that gay people need to understand that they're a minority, and if they really push this, the backlash is going to be something that they probably can't handle. Yeah, I mean, even in California, right? You're in California, that's your stronghold, and yet gay marriage got defeated there. You know, you had to have the federal government come in and force it on everybody. But that's only one judge away from being undone, right? This is how gay rights got tied into whether Kavanaugh got appointed or not. You know, gay rights gets tied in with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and hoping that Clarence Thomas dies and is replaced during the Biden administration, and voting for Biden, right? So even though Trump was a cross-dressing, clearly pro-gay guy, where Biden was talking about the sanctity of marriage for his entire career as he was throwing black people in the prison by the millions and voting for every single war since Iraq War I. He didn't vote for that one, and then he never lived it down and has been for every war since. But he's a Democrat, so we don't care, right? All the angst you have of the guy in the truck who swore at you when you were walking down the street holding someone's hand, or gave you a bad look, or even stuff that didn't even happen, like a teacher gave you a bad grade on a test and it must have been because they were homophobic. Well, all that is the fault of the people who don't agree with you. None of that is the fault of the people who actually did it, right? None of them hold it against the public schools, for instance. None of them hold it against the union. None of them hold it against the federal government or the Democratic Party. They hold it against anyone that they're arguing against. You're guilty of everything, and they were wronged, and they want revenge, and they're going to get it by threatening to, and if they can, converting your children. So anyway, everyone, I hope that was it. I was going to try and show the video on the other side and go through it bit by bit, just like they say, but it turned to be quite a hassle. So you can all go listen. I'll put a link if you want to listen to it. It is rather creepy. All right, I'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.